Hello, everybody. Um, so good to see you. And I know it's been a while since we've had a good old room rumble, but the opportunity came up, and I couldn't leave it alone. It was sort of a Trinity discussion over it standing for truth. That I felt like I couldn't not go in there. Mostly because I don't understand how the Trinity logically works, and each time somebody's explained it, it seems insufficient to me. So that's really what I wanted to go in to discuss. However, as the gentleman Matt his presentation unwound, I found more and more that it wasn't so much a discussion on the Trinity, but rather a discussion on presuppositional apologetics. So the presupposition that God was responsible for all intelligibility, all coherence, all morality was basically being proffered, and then the Trinity was being asserted from there, which was really, really interesting. So I went in there, and I'll cut out most of the stuff beforehand, but it was very interesting just how the argument for the Trinity, or the evidence for the Trinity, got into the usual presuppositionalism arguments of how do you justify your worldview? How does the atheist justify the worldview? I don't see any reason why I would have to justify my worldview in order to explain yours, but I did sort of play along, and it really did turn into an interrogation. Now, I found out later that Matt Yester, who was there, it really is a Darth Dawkins sort of minion clone wannabe. Really wants to sort of proffer the Darth Dawkins way of doing things. And for my part, I answered everything as faithfully as I could, as honestly as I could, to the best of my knowledge and how I thought about things, how I get from one thing to another, what I presuppose, why I presuppose it, how that makes the foundation for what I know or what I think I know, because he didn't seem to understand that ontology and epistemology they can't be considered in the same as the same thing. His thing was kind of, we've got to do these three things together, and they're all together: epistemology, ontology, and ethics. For some reason, I'm not sure about the ethics part. I didn't really get to that, but there's no reason why they should all be considered in one. Epistemology is how you justify getting to an ontology, or what you think the ontology is, because and I have to explain what they are. The ontology is the actuality of things, right? So if you've got a room next door, okay, and you're sitting there going, is my phone in the room next door? Your epistemology is all the reasons why you justify that to be the case, right? So just say you think your phone's in the next room. Okay, well, I probably left it there because I was using it then. That's the last place I saw it. I was carrying it around the house, and I can remember putting it down on the. That is your epistemology. The ontology is whether the phone is actually in that room, right? So the actual reality of the situation. Now, your epistemology might be solid, but you're still wrong. Like, you can say, hey, I remember putting it there, and still be wrong. So nobody has a direct access to ontology. We always go, well, the ontology is the metaphysics of it, and then our epistemology is how we justify believing the ontological case that we're putting forward. Like in the version, I believe my phone's in the other room. This is how I justify it. Or I know my phone's in the other room. This is how I justify it. That's your epistemology. But he seemed to think that he had ontology directly. He had ontology, which is never the case. You never have direct access to the actuality of things. All you can do is say, hey, my senses show me this, or this justification, or this series of logical steps leads to this. So it was very, very odd, and I felt like, even though he sort of talked big as a philosopher throughout his stream, and I'll link to the stream so you can see it if you do want to, because he really didn't have a solid foundation for anything that he was saying. And sort of he talked a big game about philosophy, but he really couldn't justify how he gets to a god. He basically said, well, if you can't get to something, then I'm justified in believing it's a god. And that is not the case. I could be completely clueless about how to get to a justification, but it doesn't mean that yours is any more correct. So I think this was a weird one, and sort of the reason why it was definitely a room rumble was that Sam redefined living, who I have blocked. He's not a very nice person. Just basically said all kinds of things about me and interrupted constantly, and basically just was. I mean, I think I'm not sure if he was supposed to be a co-moderator or not, but as a co-moderator, he was absolutely terrible. He was sort of telling me how I was wrong and how I ruined the stream. Look, I'd go in there with the best intentions. I go in there trying to be, hey, I'm going to put my ideas up. I'd love to hear your ideas. I don't see it as my fault when you're demanding I explain something that's already been explained 3 times, and you'll see that happen. It's kind of alarming and weird and strange. Um, so yeah, I didn't think much of this. I thought it was hilarious the way that they kept sort of asserting things, then telling me I hadn't explained my position when I had, and when I asked for theirs, how they get to a god, it's ignore it and go back to you, ignore it and go back to you, which is, we've all seen that from Darth Dawkins. We all have the, oh, well, I'll answer your questions, you answer mine first, which it never gets there. It's the presuppositional hokey pokey. You put one arm in and then you take it out and then you shake it all about. We never got there, surprisingly, as you can probably expect. But this was great. This was fantastic. I had a blast on this one because people just getting mad at the answers that I'm giving them and how I'm justifying it logically. I don't think they realize how much I've thought about this. Like, I've really thought about this a lot, and that's okay. You can disagree and you can sort of point out flaws, but when I'm giving answers, don't interrupt me 2 seconds in and then say I'm not giving the answer, because it's the answer. I don't like, you can disagree that the answer covers it, but just sort of saying, hey, you didn't answer that isn't a refutation of what I've said. It's just a, blatant denial that I've answered a question I clearly have. If you don't have a logical response or a rational response to it, that's your lookout, not mine. And you can say, hey, I don't believe you. That's fine. I'm not expecting you to. You can reject any of my presuppositions, but as you'll see, they didn't want to. What they wanted to do was sort of make an extra presuppositions of where things like logic and the senses come from that I'm not granting. Yeah, I'll just say it outright. I'm not granting those presuppositions. It's enough that I presuppose them. I don't make any claim of where they come from. So, yeah, interesting one. Really good to get back in the room rumble seat. Actually, this was definitely a rumble, and it was definitely good. It felt good. I came out sort of, well, I've made my position clear. I don't know how else I can point out that they haven't answered any questions that I've put forward, like 0 questions that I've put forward. So, that's on them. But yeah, I might sort of clip this one and take a couple of things from it. I do have some stuff going. It's a work in progress, but for the moment, are you ready? Let's get ready to rumble.
Okay, how have I misrepresented the argument? Because I'm pretty sure this is
because like our guest Mark, he doesn't affirm the God of Scripture, and he can speak intelligibly. Yes. Because he's living in God's world, even though he denies it, just like the caveman in your analogy.
So Mark can come to localized, non-general understandings of absolute truth, apart from the existence of any God or creator.
Yeah, can Mark deny objective truth?
I feel I want to chime in now that I'm being sort of discussed wholeheartedly. I really feel like I should be able to throw my hat in the ring, but I think
just sit there and smile a little bit longer.
okay.
And
I just want to add. I think A's philosophy's got a good point where you have to start with self. I mean, there is no other way to start. Like, you cannot start from anything else.
Well, we're saying on the Christian side that knowledge of self-consciousness is self-knowledge of God.
Well, I guess here's my point is that.
All right. Well, I know Mark Reid is itching to get in on this. He's pumped, and I'm pumped as well. So, Mark, good to have you. Definitely not your first time here.
All guys always pumped.
Yeah.
Always. I think it's just me personally. I'm always pumped. I went through and took a copious amount of notes. It seems like you're falling into a whole heap of sort of fallacies and problems, but I want to sort of get at first, really focus on how your epistemic knowledge gets from your thoughts, which has to be your starting point. You cannot start with a God unless you are in fact that God. Like, there is no breaching that. There is no way to start with that. Unless, of course, you're presupposing a God. And this does sound like a presuppositional argument, sort of, I'm going to presuppose a God and then work from there. Yeah, so all that has to be done is just a rejection of that presupposition, and then you're done. Because a presupposition isn't justified necessarily. That's the whole idea of a presupposition. You cannot justify it. So unless you want to ground that with some kind of justification, and let me finish. Unless you want to ground it with some kind of
time, please.
Well, unless you want to, it's the same thing. It's the presupposition. It's the same thing, Sam. What are you talking about?
Mark, I reject.
The broadest presupposition is a.
Anyone is free to reject anybody's presupposition.
I reject your presupposition of the non-biblical worldview. Therefore, God exists on your own terms. Do you accept that?
That's not a presupposition that I make, Sam. Hang on. Well, hang on. Let's get Sam. You're just interrupting to sort of just sort of put it back on me. I'm trying to ask a question here.
Yeah.
Because
Sam,
Sam, why are you interrupting me? Why are you interrupting
Guys, come
me?
on. There's a little overtalk. We want the audience to understand what the arguments are.
Yes.
We want the audience to hear what's being said. So, Mark, finish your thoughts.
Yeah.
And then we'll throw it back to Sam. And
no presupposition has a foundation for its truth. It is simply something that is asserted or a circular reason kind of thing. It is simply assumed and axiomatically or just innately in order to justify your worldview. And that's fine if you want to do that, but there doesn't seem to be a reason why I would accept that presupposition. So can you give me a reason why I should accept your presupposition?
Okay. No, we're not saying you accept.
Okay.
We're saying if you deny, okay? Because like I said, when I was laying out the worldviews, on both sides, you got metaphysics, epistemology, ethics, the broadest categories. And you're going to have proximate presuppositions about what you believe exists, how you have knowledge, and so on and so forth. And I said, since you're invoking a plurality of things here, you're going to have many things in this category, different things, types of things exist. There's plants, there's animals, there's rocks, chemicals, you're individuating things. You can believe in the principle of individuation. You even individuate things.
Well, sorry to interrupt, Matt. We're not there yet. We're still sort of talking about our base level thoughts.
You're saying your ultimate presupposition, which is a transcendental, it's a different nature than your proximate. You may have proximates that are necessary prerequisites for other proximates and say, you need this one antecedently before you even get this one, even on a proximate level. We're saying, how broad in scope do you go? When you stop at your broadest context, that's your ultimate presupposition that you're starting from. It's your ultimate starting point, which is transcendental in character. That's what we're talking about, what a transcendental is. I'll just use Kant's definition if you want to understand a basic concept of it. He says it's not a particular theorem. It's a principle for understanding all theorems. Okay? So it's talking about in the broadest scope. So when you just say, well, it's just the very nature of presupposition. You presuppose this, I'll just presuppose the very same thing, and we can't argue because I'm just asserting the same presuppositions. Not at an ultimate level, because you want unity and cogency and coherence of a systematic relationship of these things. There must be an underlying unity. But that ultimate must cash out plurality as well. What is that thing?
Do you want my presuppositions to start with? Maybe that would help.
Well, they're all approximate, right? You have an ultimate one.
No. I'll give you my presuppositions. Like you're basically talking about my presuppositions without even knowing them. Which you're going down to this materialist view, way down the. Excuse me. You're going down to this materialist. Excuse me, Matt. You're going down to this materialist view, way down the track, when I haven't even stated my base presupposition. So if I can just
hold on.
Yeah.
Donny, you're
I didn't
muted.
put any content down.
Why am I being interrupted again?
Hold on. Time out. Look,
what's
we
the
have
matter, Sam?
plenty of time.
Yeah.
We have plenty of time.
Yeah.
I'm making a point of moderation. Okay.
Are you the moderator, Sam?
You've said. I mean, we can move on, Mark, if you're just going to misbehave.
I'm
We've
not.
had a
I
good
related it abstractly. I didn't put any
conversation.
content. I said
Donny,
different
can you
types of things will be
mute
inserted.
Guys, let's
This-
start fresh.
this-
Let's start fresh. A lot
this
of
is
people
ridiculous.
looking forward to this discussion.
Look, we had a rigorous disagreement with A's philosophy.
Right.
He let us speak. I wanted to speak. Matt wanted to speak. He wanted to speak, and everything went fine. We have plenty of time. We want you to speak, but you're going to be charitable to us because you are coming onto this stream also.
Yeah.
So you made a statement to Matt.
Mm-hmm.
Matt got a chance to address it. I didn't. I would like to address it, and then we can hand it back to you.
Sure. All right.
And so you're taking notes. You can take notes.
Sure.
Okay. So if you either have an argument to instantiate your non-biblical worldview, or I can just be arbitrary as you were and reject your presupposition.
Okay.
What's good for the goose is good for the gander. So you can either instantiate your non-biblical worldview, or you are also making a presupposition. Now, it is not a misrepresentation of your position that we're speaking about to categorize it within a non-biblical worldview. It is a true dichotomy, A or not A. We're simply filling in the value, the biblical worldview or the non-biblical worldview. Now, unless you can instantiate your worldview, then you are presenting a double standard. So that's what I wanted to put forward. So you can go ahead and address Matt, but please don't fail to address me, because I want a response. I want your argument for the instantiation of your worldview.
Sure.
That's independent from mine.
Okay, yeah, you made your case. Okay, so what you're doing is shifting the burden of proof, and I'll just touch on that lightly. When basically you're claiming a knowledge of something like a God, and then you're saying, hey, I've got to prove my worldview is true that you've made the claim, that is inherently a logical fallacy, shifting the burden of proof. But I'll just throw that up as a fallacy made, because I'm not going to say you're essentially wrong because of a fallacy. It's just a fallacy. So when you say you're not mischaracterizing me because you're my non-biblical worldview, you're actually making assertions of what I'm presupposing in that. And that's what Matt was doing. He was saying, you presuppose this and presuppose that. The only things that I presuppose are, one, the laws of logic, the logical absolutes, identity, non-contradiction, excluded middle. Okay, I presuppose that. Number two, I presuppose that my senses are true for a given level of accuracy. Now, you guys actually validate those presuppositions. So we can. You don't. So can you explain to me why without using?
Hold on, Mark. Let's slow down. I'm going to let you finish.
Okay.
I don't want you to dish gallop. Okay.
Yeah, well,
I don't want you to lay out a bunch of stuff.
It's my presuppositions. What are you talking about, Sam? It's the same point.
You only have two.
So
which one's ultimate?
You've given us a plethora of ones right now, and you've
what connects these?
Misrepresented our position. We do have, at a very surface level, seemingly similar presuppositions, but fundamentally, they're entirely different.
So you don't reject my presuppositions?
Well, we don't mean the same thing by the laws of logic. Do you do? You ever thought to think of the triune God?
Well, you can either reject the laws of logic or you can accept them. I mean, which
we're not rejecting them.
Okay.
No one's rejecting them. We're saying you invoke the same term that we do. We mean completely different things by them because our worldviews are systematically different.
Do you mean the origin of them? Is that what you're talking about? The origin of them?
No.
Okay.
No. Say what you mean by them.
Yeah.
They are impersonal. They do not reflect the thinking of God. That's how we take them.
It doesn't matter.
Even though we're invoking the same. It does, because they're diametrically opposed. That's why I laid out two sides of the page. Because you're not on our view, so you must be standing somewhere else.
Let's not.
Where are you standing, Mark?
Well, let's not.
My
project,
worldview.
Let's not project onwards. Let's not project onwards, because now you're going down from the laws of logic.
I said.
I can't even talk.
No. I said you said Matt, you invoke the laws of logic. I say so do we. We do not mean the same thing by them.
So you're basically going down from the laws of logic down to a worldview based like with the laws of logic apply to. I'm simply giving I'm simply giving a base version of what I presuppose up front, that and only that. Now you're saying because of a God. That's what gives us the laws of logic. That is TAG, or the transcendent argument from God, in a nutshell. I don't make that claim. I don't make that distinction. I don't say anything to the type of it. You need to demonstrate that the laws of logic actually come from a God. And if you presuppose that the laws of logic come from a God, I can reject that, because you can reject any presupposition.
Mark, the two sides, and I said, you're going to argue from your approximates to the ultimate. I said, we're starting with the ultimate to our approximates. We're arguing different directions. You keep asserting we're arguing the way you are. Oh, we got to start with the laws of logic and then deduce God. I said the X, or P is necessary presupposition for X. I said the P is not deduced or induced from X, but P is a necessary presupposition for the very intelligibility of X. X is the laws of logic.
I never said that,
hold on, Mark.
laws of
I
logic were an ultimate. Okay,
Mark, hold on.
Well, are they?
No.
You only laid out 1 and 2 here. Which one's primary? Laws of logic or sense?
I never said any were primary.
Well, I'm asking you. You laid out 2. Are they coterminous?
What do you mean by primary?
I mean, I said from the laws of logic, you don't get from logical principles alone. They apply to the spatial temporal realm.
Okay, so I would say an absolute reality is the ultimate, if you will. I know that hang on, let me finish. I know that an
hold on, Mark. Hold on a second.
Well, I was asked a question. Can I answer the question, please?
Okay, guys, I'm going to jump in real quick. Either we can do. I'm jumping in. Guys, I want to talk. Okay. Either we can do what we do with the evolution open mics and go equal time.
I think that'd be best.
2 minutes, or we can have a free-flowing discussion. But you guys are going to have to learn how to have a free-flowing discussion in a more cordial way. So let's throw it to Mark. Mark, finish your thoughts, and then we'll throw it back to Sam and Matt.
Yeah, I want to say something here.
Yeah, okay, Sam.
Well, we're going to start with Mark, and then Sam.
Let me finish.
You write down what Mark says, and then refute it.
Let's start fresh, mate.
So
Go ahead.
Nice. So I know that an absolute reality must exist, and the reason why is because I don't go to cognito ergo sum. I think that's an overreach on absolute knowledge, but because thoughts exist, because I know I have them, that is the base foundation is my thoughts. I know that there must be an absolute reality. Either something must exist. Now, I don't claim with any absolute certainty what that something is. It could be a God, right? You could be right. But in order for that to be true, you have to have some foundation for showing that, not just presupposing that is true.
Why can't you have an ultimate foundation? You did. You had a base foundation, naive foundationalism. Asserting the one actually assumes a cluster of beliefs to even assert the cogito. But you didn't even assert that here. You said laws of logic. You didn't say the cogito is number 1. You said laws of logic. Which one is primary, the cogito or laws of logic, then the senses, or what? You have an order here to anything? A sequence?
I keep getting asked questions. Should I answer them or wait?
Yeah, I would just write them down because I'm trying to be patient, and you addressed something that I said, and I've been trying to be patient and let you get it all out. So now's a good time. So you said that I was burden shifting, but I was impeccably clear. I'm showing that in a true dichotomy, I'm not shifting any burden. I'm accepting my burden, but I'm pointing that you have a burden and you're not neutral. So again, you can either have an argument that instantiates your worldview, or maybe you have an argument for some neutral ground upon which the theist adds God. If you have that, if you can argue that there's a neutral ground and the theist adds God, then yeah, we would have the burden of proof. But if you don't have that, Mark, then you have a burden of proof for your worldview also. Okay, and the next thing I want to address, when you say that we have similar starting points, an example of why that doesn't work is, let's just say your presupposition of a rational mind. Do you have a rational mind because a God created your mind so it can be rational to receive the revelation of God? Because that's what we mean by it. So if you're presupposing that, then yeah, we agree. But if you're just saying, hey, over here, I want to deny God and I have a rational mind, but you don't want to give an explanation for it as I just did, well, then I'm going to ask you to unpack that. So at a very surface level, we have seemingly similar presuppositions, but when we actually examine them, we see that we do not have similar presuppositions at all. So Mark, you have a worldview. The affirmation of a worldview entails that it should either be held rationally or instantiated or irrationally. So if you can provide an argument for your worldview, Mark, that'd be good. If not, you have a presupposition.
Yeah, so
right?
I already started, and everybody has presuppositions. So first off, I'll address the things that Matt said. So why can't you have an ultimate? I didn't say you can't have an ultimate. I never said anything of the sort. In fact, I said that my ultimate is some sort of absolute reality. Ultimately, there has to be an absolute reality, and I outlined the reasons why, and that addresses Sam's point of what do you have. But if you're sort of saying, Sam, that rational is accepting God, that's just sophistry. That's just redefining what rational means to say I win. It doesn't mean anything to anybody else. So if you want to do that, that's fine. But that is just.
Mark.
Excuse me, can I finish? That is what you said. Yeah. I noted it down. Now, your idea of showing a true dichotomy for the burden of proof. Yeah, sure, I have a proof, and I gave one, which is the deductive argument based upon the existence of my thoughts and the inescapable idea that an absolute reality must exist based upon there being something rather than nothing. I mean, you're free to argue with that, but do so at your own peril. Now, you said that order and thoughts. I never said that my thoughts are ultimate. I never said that cognito was ultimate. I said that an absolute reality is ultimate. Some sort of absolute. I have absolute knowledge that there is, in essence, an ultimate reality. There has to be. Because those thoughts, there must be something. Now, I never said it was I, as cognito says, cognito ergo sum is I. I never made any kind of absolute knowledge statement on why they exist. Now, yes, I do presuppose those two things, but what I notice is you're not rejecting those presuppositions. So let's go past those two things, which is the logical absolutes and our senses, right? If you accept them, will you accept them or you don't accept them? One of the two.
Don't accept them.
You don't accept them.
Okay, you lay out two cards there. You lay out two things.
You got to count
metaphysics. You talk about physical senses, and then supposedly the abstract laws of logic, which are not extended in space. So you're really just arguing on the epistemological bucket there.
Well, you only have epistemology. You don't. Sorry.
Wait, the laws of logic are not epistemic? They're not?
Are they physical?
Well, I mean, you can talk about what is metaphysical ontology.
I'm a bit confused. Donny, should I answer or am I waiting?
Well, let me critique you here. Okay, so you threw two things on your worldview there that I don't know. I asked you what unifies those. What's the relationship between the two? What underlies the unity of the laws of logic to the senses? What is that thing that unifies those two that you invoke? So you invoke two. If there's coherence between the two, there must be an underlying unity. What is it?
Oh, you want me to answer? Yeah, okay. So that's the absolute reality, yes.
What is that? Okay, so no ontological trinity here. So you're talking about absolute reality. What is that? What is that? Is that an abstract concept?
No. Well, I mean, if it's an abstract, you're saying reality isn't
what
real.
What is it in of itself?
That is a weird thing to say. Well, if it's a set, it's not
just have
real.
An abstract bubble?
It's a category, Mark, that represents all things.
No,
you're saying reality, it's all things. It is a category that it is a plurality that is unified. You are invoking a unified plurality, an impersonal absolute plurality that's unified.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
right?
An abstract unified concept, reality. It's just an abstract bubble. You encompass everything you encompass. So that's why I say impersonal abstract shell. Well, yeah, you just encompass everything with absolute reality. It's just an abstract concept. You just, want to encompass everything there by some abstract immaterial concept, which is impersonal in of itself. It's a monad. I critique that. Well, you ain't getting anything plural from that. That's supposed to be your ultimate source.
Yeah, it is my ultimate source. So this United.
Okay, we're getting many.
Excuse me, I was very quiet. Could I, Donny,
I'm asking you a follow-up question.
Donny,
I'm asking you a follow-up question. Where do you get many from that one concept?
Sort of not being allowed.
Mark, that was a critique. You have to address
It's a critique.
I
It's
am.
walking you through something.
I
Okay,
got
let's
2
walk through
words
stuff.
out. Like, how could you say that I didn't address it? I got 2
Is
words
it
out.
absolute reality? Is it not an abstract bubble by which you encompass all the particulars?
No,
You want
no.
the many.
So-
an abstract one.
No, so
what is it then?
What is it?
Okay, so an abstract, a united plurality is correct. So this is one thing that is basically the sum total, or not the sum total, but it is everything that is. It's nothing that isn't, that will ever be or has ever been. So the way you can look at it, it's not a set.
unifies
Or,
it, Mark?
excuse me, Sam. Can I please finish?
Go ahead.
Seriously.
Go ahead.
It's
Go
not a set and it's not an abstract, because the entire idea that reality is an abstract means that reality isn't real, which is the one property that it does have. Like how you can argue that reality isn't real. Now, a lot of this ties in to the way that sort of...
Slow down, Mark. Hold on, bud.
Okay, well, I mean...
You're dish galloping.
Well, I'm
You're
not. You're asking what it is, and I'm
multiple
trying to
claims.
explain what it is.
And then
Like,
you say all these things, one
You're
abstract
discounting.
concept.
look, if you don't want to hear what it is, then don't ask.
No, we want you to unpack it.
Yes.
You're making claims.
Ontologically,
Yes.
what is it in and of itself? What is the whole in and of itself?
Thank you for reminding me. I do have to address, like, when you said, "Oh, you don't have access to epistemology."
No, Mark, one thing at a time, bud.
I don't have.
You were asked to answer the question.
Yep. So you've asked different stuff. Yeah, I can't even talk.
Guys.
I can't even talk.
Guys.
This is ridiculous.
You don't listen, bud. That's all you're doing is talking. You're making claims. You're not actually dealing with anything. You invoked a set.
This isn't
and then
an
you
argument.
said it's not a set. You invoked a singular set with all things in it. You basically said it's a metaphysic. It's reality. But you added another word. It's ultimate reality, which somehow puts an emphasis on that it's all things. It's all things with an exclamation
Is anyone
mark.
else going to get
But
to
what
talk?
does that
or...
even mean, Mark? And what unifies it? That is something that is impersonal.
Okay.
It doesn't have a hold on. It does not have a mind. It is not self-unifying because it is an abstract. Abstracts do not stand in causal relations. Mark, you've given an answer that is meaningless.
Ridiculous.
We're asking you to unpack it.
He's not even going to let Donny speak.
Okay, now what we're going to do, as Praise likes to hear me say, we're going to start fresh. So
well, I think we should maybe have times, Donny. That's just my suggestion, because I can't seem to...
I do enjoy the free flowing
Yes,
discussions where you guys can cross-examine each other, but I don't know if that's going to work out with you three, because you guys are passionate, and passion is good. This is an important topic, but we're going to try and go equally timed responses now. But I want to make sure we don't go any more than a minute and a half. So let's throw it back to Mark. Mark, you get a minute and 30 seconds to address anything you'd like.
Yep.
Then we'll throw it back to Sam and Matt. You guys get a minute and a half as well. Go ahead.
Yeah, so anybody that claims to have access to ontology is just, I don't know, either deluding themselves or vain, or somehow, thinks that they know things that they don't. Epistemology is how we get to knowledge, not sort of like knowing ontology. Ontology is the metaphysics, and it's weird that I have to explain that. So when we're talking about an absolute reality, we're talking about states of physical things in the universe that are quantum entangled. So just like light passes through and separates, but those things are still entangled, they still interact with one another. I'll quote Herr Esfield: in the case of entanglement, it is only the description of whole terms of pure states, such as the singlet state, which completely determines the local properties of their parts and their relations. Therefore, quantum physics exhibits a substantial holism, i.e. the interconnectedness of all things. And Maudlin in 1998 concluded that the physical state of a complex whole cannot always be reduced to those of its parts, or to those of the parts together with their spatio-temporal relations, even when the parts inhabit different regions of space distinctly. The result of the most intensive scientific investigations in history is a theory that contains an ineliminatable holism. Right? So we're talking about that the universe, it looks like it is particulars, but in fact those particulars are emergent properties of quantum entangled states. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, thank you, Mark. That was exactly a minute and a half. So gentlemen, Sam and Matt, go ahead. You guys also get a minute and a half to respond. Floor is yours.
Matt, let me just have a few seconds and then you can finish it off. So what Mark again has done, he's given us a nice lecture, but he's not actually presented anything substantive. He has invoked a unified plurality. We ask, what is the unifier? What is it, Mark, that what one singular thing unifies all of these things that you're invoking? What would that be? And it's got to be something within the set, since you reject God. That's what we're looking for. If you're just saying that they're all unified and it's magic and it's mysterious, all right. Go ahead, Matt.
I heard a lot of ontological assertions being made by him, and then he said you can't make ontological assertions first and foremost. So that was applied a double standard there. I mean, you were invoking tons of ontological assertions there about the nature of this, the nature of that, nature. You said no, you got to start with epistemology. You're making knowledge claims about the ontology of things. You kept invoking a ton of things, so you can't divorce those categories from each other. You're saying what in your system here, since you believe there's multiplicity of things metaphysically, not saying beyond the physical. That's not what metaphysics means. So what do you believe exists? The different types of things. Ontology is a interrelational term there. It's kind of synonymous because there's different types of natures of things. Not all things have the same ontology, unless you want to say concepts are material. And the material are rational in and of themselves, or they think logically or something like that. You're going to differentiate between a rock and a human being. They don't have the same ontology, other than strictly being material, but that's just a different category for them. But since you asserted stuff epistemically and metaphysically, I said, well, and we even put ethics on here. That's been kind of irrelevant anyway, because we haven't got to that, because you're struggling with these concepts here. As you said, there's a unity and a relationality of the things you want to assert here. Knowledge claims about things that exist, and the things that exist have to ground how you have knowledge of them. I'm saying, what on your worldview basis of the multiplicity of things you assert? You asserted different things regarding quantum physics. There was assertion here, assertion there. Tick, 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 tick. Numerous things, numerous knowledge claims. Okay, you've got a many. What is it? You say the absolute reality. What is that? Is there some, are you viewing this, Mark, as some conceptual bubble that encompasses the entire thing here, because it's got to be a conceptual set that encompasses all the particulars that you asserted, metaphysically and epistemologically? What is the broadest context of that? Well, my absolute reality. What is that thing in and of itself? Is it a one concept that unifies all these distinct particulars? Because none of these particulars were your broadest thing. So your absolute reality has to be your broadest scope. It's an abstract shell by which you encompass things. The naturalist has to think this way because he thinks there's just some ultimate principle or some ultimate impersonal concept I have to just bottom out at. But when you do that, that is a conceptual monad. It's a one, and there is no diversity inherent within that. Where do you even get a plurality from that? That's supposed to be your source. That's the thing I asked you about before. Didn't receive an answer on it.
Okay, Mark, we'll throw it back to you. You got about 2.5 minutes on this one. Go ahead.
Yeah, Sam, this again, sophistry, just basically said that I didn't answer anything when I did. So you basically said ontological assertions. I made note there is no such thing as ontological assertions. So basically what I'm doing is making, and I don't believe I have to explain this, epistemological claims about ontology is not ontology itself. It's still epistemology. And I don't understand why you don't understand that. So, when I say, hey, that this is what I see as the ultimate foundation, it is reality, which I have explained twice already. I mean, I understand that you don't like the answer, but that is the answer. Now, you're sort of saying, how can you get sort of particulars? Well, easy, because there is an entanglement property, which is an emergent property between the individual entire reality, and then that gives us particulars as an emergent property. So the first thing is the reality, and then there is particulars coming from it, which makes that fundamental. Now, you can disagree all you want, but that is a completely coherent thing that that answer to what you are asking me. And I understand that you don't like that answer, but that is the answer. Now, I'll put it back onto you. Can you justify your God, or is that simply a presupposition?
You're missing the boat here. You made ontological claims about properties and quantum physics, did you not?
Correct.
You made knowledge claims about it, but you're invoking about they exist, yeah? Does quantum physics exist? Or is that merely just an idea? So you were making metaphysical claims, Mark. Don't deny it. You were. So I'm saying you're invoking both of these, and you're invoking a plurality of things here and a plurality of things here. Knowledge claims about the plurality of things here, and these are supposed to be grounded how you even have an epistemology. So I go, look, are you encompassing these with some abstract set you call absolute reality? That's going to encompass all my particulars about assertions regarding quantum physics and the properties and the plurality of things and blah, blah, blah. So you got some abstract shell you're tanking out to, right? Quote, unquote, absolute reality. Well, that in and of itself is what? A concept. You want that as some unifying shell.
Right.
And that in and of itself is a monad. It's a one concept. And it's impersonal, immaterial. You're not getting anything physical from it. Are you an idealist now, Mark? Where you get from purely idealistic concepts without a mind, you get something extended in space. Okay? You're not answering the very challenge I presented to you here. Merely side-skirting the issue, making all these claims about metaphysics and making all those claims about it and invoking stuff in reality. I'm saying, good. What unites these two? The plurality of all these things here. There must be an underlying unity of it. You evoke the concept of ultimate absolute reality. Okay, that's your broadest scope. Well, that thing in and of itself is an abstract concept. You ain't accounting for squat from that. It doesn't do anything. It's non-causal. It's purely formal. It's abstract. There's no concrete character to it. You just throw out this abstract term. What is absolute reality of itself? Well, it's just it's like the law of identity. There's just no content to it. It's an abstract law in of itself. There's no content. It's purely formal and abstract. It doesn't stand in causal relations to anything. But that's what you just did with your absolute reality concept. You want that to encompass, everything needs to be encompassed because there needs to be a unified field here. But that thing, separate from the ontological God who's revealed himself, who is both the one, many, and personal, you're going to have some impersonal absolute in and of itself. But it's a monad, not diverse. So you're not catching out diversity or physicality or anything like that. And there's tons more problems that are invoked with that as well.
Yeah, you don't get to just dismiss what I say as sophistry because you don't understand when I literally said the same thing as Matt. You've got a plurality of things that you're invoking with nothing that unifies them. Maybe another problem that you're doing is you're invoking a provisional conclusion and saying that everything is quantumly entangled. But are you a Hindu? That would destroy intelligibility because you're talking about distinctions that are only an illusion. That's the way that you're describing reality. I don't think you want to say that, but you're not invoking the thing that unifies it. You have all of these different things that make up this singular set of reality, and you're invoking them all as though they're unified by something. But what is that thing that unifies them? If you don't understand my question, don't call it sophistry, but you're invoking these things as if there are something that unified, and you don't have a mind. You haven't invoked a mind to unify them. You're also making universal statements about the fundamental nature of reality, saying that they're quantumly entangled, but you haven't observed all of reality to justify or instantiate that statement. Where'd you get that from? I mean, you keep making these epistemological claims, and you're making on claims about the fundamental nature of reality in the ontological state, saying that it's all quantumly entangled. Where'd you get that?
Okay, Sam,
like I said, you continue to make claims, Mark, but we're asking you to articulate, to actually defend one, state one, name it and claim it, state it and defend it. And all you're doing is you're just providing a compilation of more and more rhetoric, but you're not actually engaging with anything. What's the unifier, Mark?
Okay, thank you, Sam. Thanks, Matt. Mark, back to you. Take as much time as you need to respond.
Thank you. So I'm not missing any boat. As I said, you don't have access to ontology. You only have access to epistemology, which you found strange. Like, because I'm making claims about ontology still doesn't make it ontology. It just makes it an epistemological claim to ontology or metaphysics. So this is weird that you don't understand this. It's not a concept. Like the whole idea of reality being a concept. I mean, maybe you don't have a grip on reality. I don't know. Maybe you don't know what reality is, perhaps. But it's not a concept. Reality is real. I've explained it multiple times. You guys don't like the answer because it is a coherent answer that you don't want to exist. That's fine. I get it. But, sort of saying I'm not explaining it, I've explained it down to the quantum level. So, any more explanations, I don't think you're going to. But do notice the dodge, ladies and gentlemen. Do notice that they haven't actually addressed what makes their God actually foundational. They haven't explained how they get from their thoughts to a God. all they've sort of said is, well, we're going to presuppose the God. Now, they haven't rejected my presupposition. So as far as I know, my presupposition of my senses being accurate for a given level of accuracy and my presupposition of the logical absolutes still stand. If they want to make the claim that they come from somewhere, that's fine, but they have to justify that claim, or else, again, it may be an empty presupposition that I reject, and they're free to reject my presuppositions. But what you can't do is say, hey, I accept your presupposition. Now I'm going to tell you where it comes from. That is not appropriate. Now, why would I be Hindu, Sam? Like, that is just a straw man. And speaking of straw men, you're sort of saying, putting a lot of things, assuming that saying it's a plurality. I never said it was a plurality. You're just straw manning and misrepresenting my position for your own ends, Sam, and I don't know why you're doing it. Like, accusing me of being a Hindu is ridiculous. It doesn't have a mind. Correct, it doesn't have a mind. Who says it needs a mind? Prove it needs a mind. But you won't do that. All you'll do is say, hey, you define what you think it is. When I have, you say, well, it has to have a mind. Why? You're not backing that up with anything. You're just making a baseless claim. And sort of this whole idea of you've got to articulate it. Let me translate for you, ladies and gentlemen. You've got to put it in such a way that it's a God is what they're asking me to do. And I have explained this 3 times already. I'm not going to explain it again. You have been given my answer. Deal with it in some way or reject it. You can do that.
Yeah, all right, great. So when you talk about reality, Mark,
yes.
Even people from your camp don't agree. So when you make a statement and you say, well, maybe you don't understand what reality is, well, why don't you tell me what reality is? Is it dualistic in nature? Is it monistic? What exactly is reality? Because your camp doesn't even agree. When I say that it needs to be of mind, that's because you're invoking something that can unify. You're invoking all of these individual particulars in this single set that you're calling reality, and you're saying that they're unified. Again, I keep asking you, what is this thing that unifies it? You're invoking the properties of our mind. When I say that, when I suggest that maybe your explanation of reality is like a Hindu, that's because you're saying that all things are one. They're all tangled up in this quantum field. Well, if that's the case, then all distinctions are an illusion and you've destroyed intelligibility. So you've confused what reality is. Your camp doesn't even know what that is. You can't articulate that, or you're just giving your opinion like Matt has already explained. It's arbitrary. Nobody cares. You're making universal statements about the fundamental nature of reality at a molecular level. What justifies any universal statement? If you don't understand what I mean when you say that it's that you're talking about reality like a Hindu, I think you're confused about what you're saying. And yeah, I mean, I don't really know what else to say. This is a disaster for you, Mark. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. You're going to a monistic level and then saying all distinctions. There really are no distinctions. It's really illusionary. But if you are saying that fundamentally it's all one, then where do you get this principle of individuation from, other than take it for granted? Why just individuate? That's not a real philosophical account, Mark. You're just taking a whole bunch of things for granted, but not offering any explanation for things. It's just description. I believe this. I assert it. It's merely epistemological. I'm not making any ontological assertion. You're making epistemic claims about ontology. You want to take that to the epistemic level, then just be an idealist. Say it's merely my ideas. Really, metaphysically, you have no idea what the heck exists. Not even sure if I exist as even a material construct or whatever. You know, you may think that's the way it appears, but hey, how can you really know? Can't know the thing in and of itself. You want to be neo-Kantian that thing, then just be a subjective idealist. And we don't have any objective source for anything, but you sound pretty ironclad with those assertions. Sounds pretty hard-nosed regarding it, but I think philosophically, this is all just merely epistemic assertions, divorced from metaphysics. Now, like I said, you can't have one without the other. What is the ontology of an epistemology, Mark? What is this very nature? You say it's conceptual. Okay, well, you just dove into metaphysics there. Sorry. You don't get to have epistemology in a vacuum. I already showed that earlier. That's impossible. You already have metaphysical bias. Even when I ask you about the very nature of what an epistemology is, you can say, oh, I don't know what it is, but I keep invoking it. Oh, you're invoking epistemology. You don't know what it is. It's nature because you don't want to go into metaphysics. So then stop claiming you have an epistemology or any epistemic assertions if you're not going to deal with the ontology of what an epistemology is. You don't get to have your cake and eat it too there and do this severing here. That's philosophical suicide. And that's what you just did. You want epistemology in a vacuum? That's impossible. Impossible. Say that earlier. Didn't deal with anything. I illustrated that right from the very beginning. You're not even integrating that into your thought process here. You're being very sloppy philosophically.
Yeah, so the whole idea that sort of I'm trying to just have epistemology in a vacuum, I'm not. So again, you're mischaracterizing what I've said. What I'm saying is that people don't have access to ontology. So your claim that, hey, you know this ontological thing, or you have access to this ontological thing, is simply vanity, is what it is. Nobody has access to ontology. Nobody has access to the metaphysical. The epistemology is how you know things. Ontology is actually what exists. So when you say, hey, I know this, you don't have access to the ontology. You only have access to the epistemology. So Matt's philosophy is absolutely terrible. I don't know where you got it from. So individual particulars, I'm not saying that they're individual, so you haven't been listening, Sam. I never said that they were individual at all. I said that basically the particulars are emergent properties from the one absolute reality. And that's what I said specifically, but you choose to ignore that and misrepresent what I've said, which is another excuse me.
You're saying that they're entangled. You're saying I have all of these individual
So I'll just go on because Sam can't control himself.
And then you're confusing yourself back and forth on what
Guys.
This is a disaster. We need to move on.
Sure.
Mark,
sure.
I'm sorry,
I'm doing so badly. You need to move on
about.
without even addressing how you know there is a God. Yeah, sure. That's
okay. Why don't we do this to be fair?
Well,
guys,
Sam can't control himself.
No, you're not answering the question. What is the unifier? That's what I want to know. What is the unifier? That's what it is.
Yeah, already told you.
If it's not a mind, what is it?
Yeah, already told you.
What is it?
Yeah, already told you. I already told you. I've told you 3 times
saying that
already.
On one hand,
so I never said there were individual particulars. I said that the particulars were emergent properties from one reality. So a way that I could Sam, could you please have some decorum? So another way you can sort of show this is there is only one you. There's only one human as you, right? There's just you. But however, you're made up of cells, like you're made up of lots of different cells. In this way, and that's the many in the one problem, that you are an emergent property of all the things that make up what you're calling you. So are you one thing? Are you many things? The answer is kind of yes. The one thing is what sort of has emergent properties. So basically, and this is backed up by quantum physics, that even though it seems to us for there to be individual things, really there is just one reality that is all quantum entangled, and that's what it seems to suggest. Now, how did I get to that? 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 From where I launch my presuppositions. Well, basically, I presuppose logic. I presuppose my senses. Senses gives us empiricism.
Can
I please speak without being interrupted? This is really incredible. I mean, come on.
Okay, guys, this is what I'm going to do. Look, I've got a great way for us to proceed.
You presuppose a rational mind. You presuppose the external physical world, Mark. I mean, all you have are unjustified presuppositions. We're asking you what unifies those over again. And then you want to pivot to say they're unified by this thing called reality. But that's just a cop-out.
Presuppositions.
We've already explained it like 10 times.
Sam, presuppositions are always unjustified. Presuppositions by nature are unjustified. That's the whole point. If you had, Sam, let me finish. If you had a justification, you wouldn't need a presupposition. You don't understand anything.
You don't understand the nature of it. They can be proven.
This is ridiculous.
Mark,
you don't know what you're
presuppositions?
Well,
why don't you prove that your God presupposition? Why don't you prove
Mark,
it?
is that a double
standard? Our standard justification is different than yours.
No, you've dodged and dodged and dodged. I've asked you 3 times to prove it.
I'm answering you right now, Mark. Hold on. Mark, let me
Why haven't you answered before?
Mark,
it's a song and dance.
Because I was addressing all the other assertions you were making, flip-flop between metaphysics and epistemology,
but not
saying you weren't making ontological commitments, yet you were. And I asked you about the ontology of epistemology. You dodged that.
The ontology of epistemology.
I had to move on to what you're gauntleting at me first. Then you added the justification thing later on. I go, well, you lay out 10 things prior to that.
Ontology
so let me get to it now.
Epistemology. Okay.
Well, what's its nature, Mark? You keep invoking the knowledge. What is it?
It's
what is it?
It's a methodology of how we know or believe things are true.
What's its nature? its
What's
nature?
its nature? What are you talking about? It exists in the mind.
Does it exist or not?
Epistemology exists in the mind.
Is it conceptual?
Yes, it is conceptual. It's epistemology. What are you talking
you just
about?
stepped in metaphysics. There you go. You just stepped in ontology right there, Mark.
But I don't have access to whether that is true or not. Nobody does. Not directly.
Is that your guess? Okay, is that your guess, Mark? Give me something.
Just destroyed intelligence.
I have a reasonable
don't
certainty.
Give me your arbitrary guess.
Then you shouldn't
something
speak, Mark.
Rigorous.
So this is a false dichotomy. Something is either absolute knowledge or a guess. No, that's not the case. We have reasonable levels of certainty.
Oh, what are we supposed to do? Just squirm around here where we can't nail you down? You're just jello?
What are you talking
so you're playing
about?
Jello.
I've given you direct answers. Well, why don't you
do
go
you
on
nail
to showing
down
your
on?
God is true with your epistemology?
No, hold on. I'm asking you, when I asked you that question, what is the nature of an epistemology?
Yeah,
what is it?
It's how we find out whether
it says conceptual, but that's stepping into metaphysics.
It's a methodology in how we determine whether things are true
but
or
a method is a concept.
Yes.
That's metaphysics. That's ontology. You keep invoking concepts.
A concept is ontology. Are you serious?
The ontology of an epistemology is purely conceptual by nature.
Are you serious?
That's part of metaphysics.
Concepts are ontologies.
Well, they are distinct categories, but they're related. I told you. You say I can invoke an epistemology. I'll have to deal with ontology.
I'm going to come up with a concept of a dancing pink unicorn. Is that ontologically true?
With ontology.
Is that an ontology?
Ontology of epistemology.
Is that an ontology?
You know how they're related.
The concept of a dancing pink unicorn, is that an ontology?
No,
it's not, is it? Yeah.
You invoked a concept of an epistemology. You said it's conceptual by nature. You stepped in on an ontological claim about the nature of what an epistemology even is.
It's not an ontological claim. It's an epistemological claim. What are you talking about?
No, it's not.
No, it is.
What's its nature and essence?
Okay, so we start from the logical
absolutes.
Why do you even ask questions if you want to give the answers for me, Matt? What's wrong with you?
I'm quizzing you. I want to see if you're thinking here.
Yeah, so we have a presupposition of the logical absolutes. That leads us to rationality. That sets up epistemology, and then we make ideas about what is ontological using epistemology. That's it.
Bullcrap. You invoked the physical senses.
Yes, it's a presupposition. What are you talking about?
Well, that's ontology. That's ontology.
That's not ontology.
I'm talking about the categories you're putting them in.
That's not
ontology. You said, no, I'm only epistemological, no metaphysical, ontological commitments. I go, then take away your senses.
It's a presupposition.
You only have the laws of logic.
Be ontological.
I said,
what are you talking about?
Of them?
Oh, this is hilarious.
Come on, Mike.
A presupposition is ontological, is it?
You're not just given the laws of logic. What are they in of themselves?
The logical absolutes.
What are they, Mark?
Law of identity, non-contradiction, excluded middle.
No, I didn't say...
Laws of logic don't exist.
What?
Well, sure, but we presuppose them in order to make
keep invoking them.
Rational statements about the... I mean, they're not rejecting the laws of logic. That's the thing. They accept them.
I didn't ask if you are. I said...
No, I'm talking to A's philosophy who chimed in kind of thing. Like, yeah.
I'm asking you what their nature is.
Their nature is. They're epistemological. What are you talking about?
Apart from metaphysics, right?
What do you mean apart from metaphysics? Epistemology describes metaphysics.
Because you vacuum the epistemology apart from ontology.
Yeah. So
you want to vacuum and say, I'm only talking epistemological here. No metaphysical commitments whatsoever.
I think if you're wondering in the audience why this is such a weird conversation, and I am
so how are you sorting the apples?
I think you should go and look up epistemology and ontology. Epistemology is how we get to... I'm not talking to you. Epistemology is how we get to what is true. And ontology is what is actually metaphysically true. And nobody has access to what is metaphysically true. We can only use epistemology to get there.
You were missing the interrelationality of them.
Yeah, you don't have access to ontology. Thanks.
No, you're radically separating them. That's what you're doing.
I never separated
them.
Radically disassociated from them. You're radical with that.
I never separated them. I said you use
epistemology
to get to ontology. How is that separating them?
Mark.
You can't do that.
Mark, does your epistemology
I'll show you. You don't want to see the illustration.
Sorry?
Just laugh. That laughing's on
Is your epistemology, does that derive from your metaphysic?
No. Why would it?
Then where do you get it?
What are you making claims about?
Well, I'm making claims about my epistemological reasoning to get to describing the ontological state of things. But if you're claiming ontology,
the ontological state of
if you're
what
claiming
things?
ontology, then that is madness.
The ontological state of what things?
You can't justify that you have access to an ontology. How do you have access to an ontology without going through epistemology? How?
Mark.
No, I said they're related. I said you get them.
No. You're hassling me. You're hassling me for using epistemology to get to ontology. How do you skip epistemology to get to an actual state of things? How do you do that?
No, I'm not saying absolutely, just to any degree. Any ontological commitment, you make any assertion to any scintilla.
I'm
not saying comprehensive exhaustively. I didn't say, well, from your epistemology, you get exhaustively everything. I just said you invoke any one thing ontologically out to one scintilla. How'd you even get it?
What? Well, this
came
about, Matt. This came about from me simply stating you don't have access to the ontology. You can only use epistemology to get there. And you had a massive problem with that.
Agnostic. Then you can't even invoke an epistemology because it doesn't even have a nature.
What are you talking about? Of course I can.
What is it
madness.
in and of itself? What is it in and of itself?
Epistemology.
Well, is it a thing?
Well, yeah, it's a method in which we describe or we
find
out what is ontologically true and what is not ontologically true. That is what it is.
What is a method in and of itself? What's its nature? What is a method?
What is a method? It's a systematic process of doing something.
What is a we assume in unity and diversity? What, just free lunch?
Do you want to keep
going?
Is
your method axiomatic?
What's a system? So a system is a logical, rational way of doing things. What gives us logic? Hang on, no, I'm going down the chain. What gives us logic? The logical absolutes give us logic and rationality. What gives us the logical absolutes? Well, we have to presuppose those due to...
You know what I said earlier? I asked you to account for a system. You start describing to me what a system is. That's all what I asked you.
Yeah, and I'm accounting for everything. It's just you're not getting the answers. It presupposes
unity and diversity.
Do you know Darth Dawkins or something?
I asked you what a system...
Yes, he does.
Oh, that explains a lot.
How do you get a system?
It's the script.
It's
not accepting the answers that you don't want, right? So, Matt, I've given you the answers. You can accept them or you're not. That's it.
All you do is just arbitrarily assert a system. I go,
okay, well, let's go to how do you get to a god? You're dodging, you're ducking,
let's
go.
How you get to a system.
I already explained this.
Don't side you're the system.
I already explained this.
You're copping on me on a system.
How do we get to a system? Through logic and rationality, we get to systematic processes.
You're assuming a systematic relationship of even laws of logic, aren't you?
Yes, I'm presupposing the laws of logic, which you validate by accepting.
No, you're presupposing a systematic unity. Where did you get unity?
No, I didn't presuppose a systematic unity.
You can't have a system.
I only. Excuse me. Could I finish? I only presuppose.
Where do you get uniformity, Mark? You don't have uniformity, buddy.
Rationality and
how are the laws
rationality
of logic
and
unity and diversity, Mark. Just focus on the two terms I brought up to you. You keep dodging them like they're
you're dodging the whole God question. I mean, it's interesting.
Okay,
what is incredibly interesting is here in the segment that is basically for the transcendental argument and God. You're asking somebody who is coming on for their worldview instead of explaining your own. This is shifting the burden of proof fallacy. It is one of the biggest fallacies ever. And that's what you guys are doing. It's what you presups have always done, Matt. It's what you've always done.
You're here to troll presups and not really rationally engage.
I'm not actually.
Then what's in my first premise, unity and diversity? When have you touched it?
Well, I've tried honestly to answer all of your questions to the best of my ability.
Right now? I'm putting you
and it's
right
just
now.
You basically will go. That answer is not accepted, and I don't care.
Well, address it now.
I've basically just saying nah is not.
Where does intelligibility come from, Mark?
Are you tapping now, Mark?
Intelligibility.
I'm giving you a platform right now to address unity and diversity. Right now,
How old are you, Matt? Are you like 7 or something?
Mark,
are you tapping now?
I'm asking you, because I'm asking you to address it right now.
I already have. I've addressed it 5 times. So this is the kind of thing. This is the kind of thing that Darth Dawkins does. Just basically won't have a reasonable, honest conversation and just badgers people.
I didn't touch it. You didn't touch
Hey,
it.
I've already
Mark,
given
I have a
answers
question.
to
You're
all
supposed to be
this.
engaging me.
Yeah,
You're supposed to
Donny.
be
Okay,
engaging
guys.
me.
I mean,
I'm going to jump in
seriously.
real quick.
Here
I allowed you guys to. Guys,
purely rhetorically.
let me talk.
I keep explaining myself, and he just
dude.
keeps asking the
I'm
same
trying
questions.
to get down to the meat and potatoes of what I presented to you.
You're trying to get the answer you want, Matt. That's what you're
Let's
trying
start
to do.
fresh, mate.
It at all. You didn't touch my premise at all.
Which premise was
You
that?
hand-waved it. Unity and diversity, grounded in the triune God. You haven't touched unity and diversity.
Well,
You just said, I want a
demonstrate
system.
that unity and diversity come from the triangle.
Well, I asked you about a system, Mark.
No. Like, you've had multiple opportunities to explain how you get from your thoughts to God, and you have not
we are
done
only
it.
critiquing
How?
you because you
How?
make all these bold assertions.
How, Matt? How do you do it?
Mark.
How do you do it? How do you do it? Answer.
Mark.
Yeah, you don't have an answer. Yeah, he doesn't have an answer. Let's just ignore this guy. He does not have an answer.
No, you went off the hot
I've
seat.
been on the hot seat this entire
now.
time, and you have answered nothing that I have asked. Absolutely nothing.
But you didn't ask. We're asking you the questions, Mr.
So we're only playing one side of the court, Matt. Why do I feel like this is Darth Dawkins 101? Ask the questions. Well, can I get a question answered, Donny? How about one of my questions answered?
35 years.
What about one of my questions answered? What about one of mine answered?
You're a Calvinist.
I've asked you about your vacuumized epistemology. You didn't know how to deal with that. You did not know how to deal with that. And I said, well, you invoked a methodology, which is a system. I said, wait, doesn't the system presuppose unity and diversity? Where do you get unity and diversity from, Mark?
Rationality
we didn't hear an
and
answer.
Evolution.
No, you believe they're systematically related. You're still begging the question. Where do you get unity and diversity from?
Rationality and logic.
What is the unity of the diversity?
Yeah, rationality and logic. Like law of identity. Like
Are
that's
they the same
A
thing?
equals A.
Oh, wait.
Non-contradiction.
Rationality and logic. Which are they? Okay, rationality is what?
Yeah. Well,
And
rationality.
logic is, okay, define them. Define.
Okay,
Hey,
well,
Donny, I
rationality
have a question
and
for
Are they
logic.
Mark.
employing this? Are they paying each other's debts? Or are they the same thing? Are those synonyms or not?
Well, no, they're
Are they different?
interdependent. So logic is the...
Oh, like metaphysics and epistemology, aren't they? Yeah.
Okay. Metaphysics
now you
is
want symbiotic,
epistemology. Oh boy, you need to go back to class. Oh,
I know
boy.
they're distinct. They're related. Just because things are distinct doesn't mean
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Reid.
Can we just quote that one? Metaphysics is epistemology.
No,
Oh
I didn't
my.
No, I did not say that.
My. No, I'm
did
going
not
to
say
clip
that.
that, mate.
I
I
did
got to
not
clip
say
that.
Did he say that?
I did not say
He
that.
did say
pretty
that.
embarrassing, I must say.
Yeah.
Mark, I did not
he
say
say
that. I said they're related. They are distinct, but they are related. They're
So-
not radically separate.
Yeah, so where distinctions and unity sort
You know
of
the
come
difference between
from,
separation and distinction,
sort of the
Mark?
way that logic works, we have sort
I
of the
guess
law
not.
of identity,
not.
which
No
shows
question.
sort of unity,
No question,
and the
Mark.
law
No
of
question.
excluded middle and the law of non-contradiction, which shows distinction
Are they
between
related?
things.
Are they what related?
Rationality is how this logic is applied. It's how it's implemented into our everyday kind of thing.
Yeah. So this is primary.
So
this is secondary.
yeah, where we
So
get
you're just,
logic from is sort of the
Called
laws,
rationality is
the
employing
laws of
Where do you
logic,
get it?
and they're like the base level
laws
foundations of logic. Whether or
Okay, you got
not
three
those
laws.
are applicable or true is reliant on a reality supporting them.
Are the laws of logic brute facts to you, Mark?
What unifies?
No,
the
I
three?
never said that. I said it was a
What
presupposition.
unifies the three laws? What unifies the three laws?
I said it was a presupposition. Reality does.
What
if
unifies?
they are
Wait,
indeed,
that's plurality,
if
Mark.
reality does,
You said laws
if
plural. There's an S on
reality
the end of
does,
this. Laws.
if reality does indeed follow the laws of logic, they will be shown to be laws. If it doesn't, then they
there's an
are
S
not
there.
true. So whether or not they are true is entirely dependent on the state
didn't ask
of
you about
reality.
What's the lawgiver of the
I
laws
asked
of
you.
logic? Go
They're
ahead.
not. They're a
Hold on, I
language
asked you-
describing reality. So
Mark, Mark, focus.
they're
You
a
invoke
language
plurality?
describing reality. So that the whole idea that who gave them is
No,
not.
they're prescriptions.
Do you
Well,
invoke a
no, I
plurality
don't
of laws?
think they are. I don't think they're
You invoke a plurality of
prescriptive. I
laws?
think that reality is prescriptive. I think that
All laws are prescriptive, Mark. Come on, man.
no,
we think that
natural
way,
laws
Mark?
aren't.
All we think that way? All we think logically?
Hey, Mark, I did have a question
Yeah,
for you real
sure.
quick.
I mean,
I don't mean
Matt's
to
gone off the
interrupt.
rails.
We only
so
say they're
far.
only descriptive? We only say
yeah,
they're
Matt
only
doesn't want to
descriptive?
answer questions, so
You're
I might
not
as well have
a-
a
I
conversation
actually
with
did you evoke a
somebody that will
plurality,
actually have a back
Mr.
and
Shutdown?
forth and
Mr.
answer
Shutdown?
questions as well, because this
I
is
had
the
previously taken
usual
you to the
Presup
task. You don't
song
like
and
it.
dance.
You
It's,
don't like
What you call natural law is a natural
well,
law.
I don't like that you won't
Mark,
answer any
Mark.
of my questions, Matt. That's what I don't like. That your
Which one do you want to
idea
answer,
of a
Mark?
conversation
Which one?
is to
I'm
interrogate
still
me
quizzing
on
you.
my
Which one-
worldview
which one do you
about on a show.
Well, I know you don't like it.
Matt, and you talk over the
I know you
top
don't
of
like
me all the
And
time.
you didn't deal with any of my
constantly.
arguments. You didn't deal with any of them.
I certainly did.
Okay,
I
guys.
answered every question as
No, you did
honestly
not.
as I could, and you will
Incorrect.
not accept the answers. But when I ask you questions,
Whatever
you
makes you
don't
sleep at night, Mark.
answer them and ignore them. And then, so
I
I
did.
don't feel like I'm in a
Which one?
dialogue with you, Matt. I feel like I'm being interrogated by you on my worldview
Well, you made all
on
the
a
basis
show
assertions.
about God, which is strange, don't you think?
Yeah.
Sorry, professing. I really would like to talk to you.
You're the
as
one
well.
making all the metaphysical assertions.
Whatever, Matt. Go for it.
You're allowed
Whatever.
to be quizzed
I'm
on it,
not
so you
going to
wanna
engage with somebody
bloviate
who
it,
doesn't
not be
answer
quizzed on your
questions. Yeah, you're full of nothing, mate. You,
But
you won't
okay,
answer questions.
what part of my argument?
I think, Donny, I think we should go to professing, because maybe they'll have an actual conversation and not just an interrogation.
That was Mark's show. That was Mark's show.
Guys, I
Well,
think
that's
we
why I'm
gotta move to the
asking
next
Donny.
person.
I'm giving Donny my opinion. It's not my show.
All you do is come in and just.
We gotta start fresh.
Dude.
Start
Yeah,
fresh.
you went off.
I don't think Matt can start fresh about
Ask
anything.
tough questions. When
Okay,
ask tough
guys,
questions, you just hand wave away.
I want to guide us now, so if everybody could quit talking.
What is a single question?
We just hit the 3 hour
Pathetic.
and 9 minute mark, and this was some pretty lively back and forth. We had within that portion, we had some good uninterrupted responses. We also had a bit of free for all there, which I kind of allowed to take place. But we're going to move on to the next person now. But that doesn't mean anybody has to leave. You can feel free to stay, and we'll work our way back to you. But I know John Barton here has been waiting patiently.
Yeah, sorry everybody. I didn't mean to monopolize. Yeah, I'll bow out. Nice to talk to you, Donny. Nice to talk to you, Matt. Nice to talk to you, Sam. This is. I'll certainly have a few bites from this one. But
Hold on, I've been waiting patiently, very patiently, and I just want to give a recap of the conversation.
Will I get a recap?
And I just want to point out that when Mark was asked to just like when we started the stream, and we talked about how the denial of the triune God of Scripture leads to absurdity, and the worldview that denies the triune God of Scripture on its own terms destroys intelligibility. So when Mark talks about having a intellectual, philosophical justification for his worldview, he calls everything an axiom or a presupposition. He presupposes the external world. He presupposes a rational mind. He presupposes the laws of logic. He presupposes causal connections. He presupposes the uniformity in nature. He presupposes universals. He presupposes all of these things, and I didn't get an account for one of them. He contradicted himself numerous times, even though he won't admit it, and he'll try to argue that he didn't. On one hand, he said that all things are quantumly entangled. If that's true, then all reality is one thing, and the distinctions are an illusion. But on the other hand, he talked about reality as though it was a bunch of individual concrete particulars. That's a plurality. When we asked what unifies it, he said that it was itself. It unifies itself. In other words, the tumbleweed unifies it, the cactus in Arizona, the distant star, all these things unify itself. That's incoherent. He said that there was no reason given why the unifier needs to be a mind. And I said, because he is invoking this unifier as though it has, he's personifying reality and invoking it as though it is a unifier. Okay. So Mark actually has not, he says he has, he interrupted constantly. He turned this beautiful stream into a dumpster fire, but he's an atheist. That's what they do. I'm not done. I'm not done. I sat and I listened to you be rude and belligerent this whole time. Okay. But when Mark was called to ask to address any of these things, any of these necessary preconditions for intelligibility, he tanked. He became rude and he overtalked, and it just turned into a dumpster fire shouting match, which is fine. But not one time did he give an answer for anything. The answers that he gave were, well, it's an axiom, it's a presupposition, it's a presupposition. In other words, Mark's worldview can't account for these things. He has to just assume them and scoff. Mark asked for the proof of God. That's what the transcendental argument was. When I pointed out that God and not God is a true dichotomy, Mark accused me of burden shifting. I made it very clear that I'm not burden shifting. I'm saying that Mark has a worldview that needs to be instantiated, and that needs to happen independently of mine. I could literally be an atheist asking Mark to instantiate his worldview. I can be an atheist making these objections. And so Mark wants to pivot back and say, well, you know, you this and that. No, that doesn't matter. I can believe when whatever I want. I can be an atheist. I could be a note stuck to a refrigerator. Mark failed to show that his worldview can account for the preconditions of intelligibility. Mark is confused about what ontology is. When Mark was asked what the ontology of epistemology is, he flailed. When Mark invokes epistemology, what's he talking about if not the metaphysics? He wants to speak about these things as though that they're separated, but they're not. They're all unified. So here we go again with another problem of unity and diversity, which Mark wasn't able to unpack. So although Mark postures, and although Mark is very loud, his mic is turned up, he's belligerent and he's rude, and Mark seems confident, but Mark did not actually address any one of those things. And so when Mark is ready to give an actual intellectual, philosophical, rigorous explanation for any of these things, we'll be here. I'll be here.
Damn, awesome.
I'll be here.
I do want to talk to Mark, but if you're going to bow out,
conversation like an adult, like we had with A's philosophy, who wants to rigorously disagree, but yet talk like an individual, like one human talking to another, actually wants to hear us out. Okay, if he wants to do that, but Mark, you showed up. You're a militant atheist critic. You failed to account for reality independently from God, and you just tried to destroy the stream. It's fine. I just want to point out your failure and let you know that we love you, and I hope that you repent. I hope that you are reconciled with the God that you're clearly failing to deny. And so, yeah, that's it. That's my last little recap.
Mark, if you're going to bow out, that's okay, but I did want to speak with you, but I think John was going to go first.
Yeah, we need to move on.
Well, I'd like to say a couple of things because a lot of accusations were laid.
You've been saying a lot of things all night, and we need to move on.
I mean, there was a lot.
We're moving on, buddy.
This stream isn't about Mark Reid.
Well, okay. But that's fine. I'm leaving. I'll just give a sort of final answer to those accusations.
I was one of those people who was patiently waiting on this stream that was.
Okay, to be fair, I'm going to jump in. I'm going to jump in, guys. Yeah. To be fair, okay. You said a lot there, Sam. I appreciate it. If I was in Mark's shoes, I'd probably want to at least respond a little bit. So, Mark, if you think it's fair, can you just 1 minute, you can give your concluding thoughts, no more than a minute, and then we can move on. Because I feel like if you go for 2 or 3 minutes, then Sam and Matt are going to want to respond. We're going to be here
49 seconds.
Yeah, okay.
So Mark, take 1 minute for your concluding thoughts, and then we're going to move on to the next person.
No problem. So all of this, I've given honest answers to what I think their questions are. So I came on here because it was about the transcendent Trinity. The Trinity confused me. I wanted to ask questions, but unfortunately, they didn't answer any questions. I didn't create the dumpster fire. I wasn't the one talking over the moderator. I wasn't the one constantly interrupting. That's just sort of a projection of what sort of others have been doing all night. And like I said, I was quiet when Donny was speaking, moderating. Sort of the whole idea that someone comes on and to ask questions and things, and then all they do is sort of end up arguing their worldview is really weird, and it's kind of something that I do find a lot with presups. They do not want to answer the hard questions about their own worldview. They want to basically shift the burden of proof to say, you've got to answer all of your questions about your thing, and I won't answer any about mine. So the whole idea that I didn't answer anything is ludicrous. I think that that's absolutely ludicrous. I gave the honest answers that I thought were the case. I tried to describe things as clearly as I could. Unfortunately, the same didn't come from the other side. And even though an atheist could make these objections, it's not an atheist. We're in a stream not about atheism. We're in a stream about God. So it's very, very strange that you would go there.
10 seconds.
I think I've conducted myself well. I'll certainly let you be the judge, and I won't say anything else about it. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you for watching. Give a like to Donny because this was actually really fun. Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Matt. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Mark.
And yeah, I'll go. Take care.
All right.